When I first started seeing trailers for Heated Rivalry, I had the thought, this feels like fanfiction. And that thought was quickly followed up by, why does this feel like fanfiction? It's just a gay hockey romance. Oh. Heated Rivalry is a very popular 2025 TV show which I saw trailers for during commercial breaks while watching the Pittsburgh Penguins score 3 times in the first and hoping they can just hold on to that lead. I had no plans to watch it. I'm not a romance connoisseur, and I also found the premise strange as a hockey fan who thinks hockey romance is kinda cringe, bro. But I kept ruminating on why it felt cringe, why it felt like fanfiction, and so I gave in. Heated Rivalry is not fanfiction, so why does it feel like it? What exactly makes something feel like fanfiction? Is that even a bad thing? I have no idea how people are going to respond to this video. It's not typically a topic I would cover, but I had a lot of fun scripting this and I did enjoy the show, so here are a few things I want to note. I'm coming at this from a writing perspective only, and I mean no offense when I say it feels like fanfiction, nor am I meaning to offend fanfiction writers and fans either. The only thing I can talk about with any sort of legitimate credibility is the writing. This whole "it feels like fanfiction" premise could just be a me issue. It is my opinion, but there is probably someone out there who feels like I do because I'm not that unique a person. I haven't read the books. Before puck drop, a reminder that this is just my opinion. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy. And yes, I am going to go crazy with the hockey edits because when else am I going to get that chance?
And now, direct your attention to the ice for the playing of Old Canada.
First things first, I am not a fanfiction writer or consumer. My experience with it is mostly relegated to watching hour-long videos about random fanfiction and fanfiction drama because for some reason, that's interesting to me. However, I will say that I think watching these videos and witnessing online discourse about fanfiction has given me a pretty good feel for the basics. Secondly, I'm going to differentiate between fanfiction and original fiction. Original fiction being exactly what it sounds like. So what even is fanfiction? The most basic definition is fiction written by a fan of and featuring characters from a particular TV series, movie, etc. Most fanfic is based on fictional characters, but some are also based on real people, appropriately dubbed real person fanfiction. Whether based on real or fictional people, storylines are often dramatically romantic, written for fans to express their love for something that doesn't exist anywhere but in their hearts and the hearts of people who see exactly what they do. A story that wasn't written. Dramatically romantic. There are 2 parts to that. First, drama. Fanfiction tends to be overly dramatic. I think there are a few reasons for this. 1. The writer doesn't have the same constraints that published stories have. Fanfic writers don't need to please anyone but themselves. The writer has no limitations to what they write and how big they write. Now, the sources are dubious on this, but there is apparently a fanfic called The Loud House Revamped that is considered the longest piece of English literature. I'm not kidding. These people write like frickin' Alexander Hamilton. Non-stop. Number 2. Drama is cathartic, and fanfiction, being wish fulfillment, is basically catharsis, because you can finally experience the thing that the actual story didn't give you. So why not turn the drama up to 11? Why not get maximum catharsis? Scholar and critic F.L. Lucas said of catharsis, "It is the human soul that is purged of its excessive passions." What is fanfiction if not excessive passion? Passion ignores rules and confinements, just like fanfiction and unlike original fiction, which harnesses passion and bridles it in order to be widely understood, critically accepted, and technically good. Number 3. Fanfiction is often a writer's first time on the ice. Definitely not all the time, but it's common, especially amongst romance writers, because fanfiction tends to be of the romance genre. Fanfiction is fiction typically written in an amateur capacity by fans. They are not making money, they are not working with editors, they are not trying to please an existing audience. It is a writing medium with essentially no rules, no standards, and no limits. This makes fanfiction a very accessible space for new writers to explore the craft, because they can write without being judged, which is important, especially in the beginning, to foster an interest in writing. Fanfiction writers are shooting pucks into the proverbial laundry machine to practice their aim. It also provides new writers with a jumping off point, an established IP. They have characters and worlds to build from, so if world building and characterization is intimidating, they can kind of skip that part and just focus on telling a new story within an established one. Okay, sure, but what does this have to do with being dramatic? Well, newer writers don't always know how to regulate the drama. It's a fine line between dramatic and melodramatic, and fanfiction is known for the latter, while original fiction typically desires a more realistic and balanced approach to drama, even if the situation itself isn't realistic. Although you can certainly get away with melodrama more in romance than other genres. Just take soap operas and soapy shows like Grey's Anatomy. Melodrama differentiates itself from other dramatic fiction because it's over the top. Oh, I think the coaches are calling for a timeout. A person having passion for something you don't understand will usually result in cringe. Fanfiction writers have unbridled passion, which leads non-fanfiction consumers having unbridled cringe for said fanfiction. I think hockey romance is cringe. I think imagining yourself dating one of the guys you watch play a sport and spit on screen is cringe. I cringe at the very idea of hockey fanfiction in a way I don't think I would cringe at Star Trek fanfiction, a show I've never watched and a fandom I'm not a part of. I think fanfiction becomes extra cringy when you are interested in the thing it's written about. While the psychology of cringe is complex, I think part of it is you can feel guilty by association. If you like hockey, and let's be real, if you're a girl, then you must like hockey fanfiction. Burn her at the stake! So the cringe is extra strong because you don't want people thinking you like this too. So fanfiction is already kinda cringe, bro, but fanfiction about something you like? Mega cringe. There might be a time when you, as a fanfiction writer, wants to transition to original fiction, bringing the fanfiction style of writing, overly dramatic amongst other critiques, into original fiction often draws criticism upon publishing. Because a writing style developed in a space with no rules, standards, or limits, now existing in a space with many rules, standards, and limits will probably clash. So while fanfiction can foster the creativity of writers and even completely launch their careers, it can also develop bad writing habits in the eyes of mainstream fiction. Second, romance. Yes, most fanfiction is of the romance genre. Not all, but a lot. A huge reason people write and consume fanfiction is wish fulfillment. A person wishes something happened in the story that didn't, so they'll write it themselves. And a very common thing for a fan to wish for is a relationship that doesn't occur in the canon of the story. Zutara, excuse me, what was that? Some of the most popular non-canon fanfiction relationships are, according to this graph I found from Archive of Their Own from 2023, Draco Malfoy and Harry Potter from Harry Potter, Steve Harrington and Eddie Munson from Stranger Things, and Castiel and Dean Winchester from Supernatural. You may have noticed a theme. If fanfiction is an avenue to explore relationships that you as an audience member wanted to see, then naturally, fanfiction relationships would represent relationships either not presented or rarely presented in the source material. Perhaps most notably, LGBT+ relationships. Now, of course, there have been these romances and characters in the mainstream for decades, but they aren't commonly the main romance or even one of the main romances. But just because something isn't found in the mainstream doesn't mean there isn't an audience for it. This led to a lot of fanfiction about LGBT romance, and it's one of the most popular subgenres of fanfiction. According to an article from The Artifice, fanfiction fills a void in representation for LGBT+ fans, while building and maintaining a fanbase for its media source. Fanfiction often involves niches, and they can be very specific. A very popular niche in fanfiction, and now in the romance genre as a whole, is hockey romance. It goes to show how powerful fanfiction can be in determining what's popular in mainstream media. While it still mostly just influences the romance genre, it has a big influence for being just a bunch of 13-year-old girls writing gay romance in their bedroom. But interestingly, it isn't the straight hockey romance that won the Stanley Cup as you'd probably expect, due to it being seen as more mainstream. No. The most airtime straight hockey romance got was when a book talker decided to low-key harass the Seattle Kraken.
Go to the box, please.
It's the gay hockey romance that wears the champion ring, because it has a very successful TV show.
I think we thought maybe you were gay.
Based on the book by Rachel Reed, Heated Rivalry follows the story of Shane Hollander.
This is the kid with the highest hockey IQ out there.
Okay, Crosby. And Ilya Rozanov.
He's a big kid with a big shot.
Sounds like the Great Eight to me. Professional superstar hockey players who, over the years, develop a secret romance amidst a very public on-ice rivalry. And that's pretty much it. It's not a plot-driven story, it's very character-driven.
So we just sit here and look at it?
Yes, we just sit here and look at it.
I mentioned this earlier, but Heated Rivalry, the book, did not start as fanfiction. There is a lot of conflicting information on that, but Rachel Reed herself said that it wasn't, so I'm going to believe her. However, it does seem to be a known fact that Reed was part of the fanfiction community before being published, so there is a link between her and fanfiction. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. It took me partway through episode 1 to realize the writing does not feel like fanfiction. Jacob Tierney? Okay. The creator and writer of Heated Rivalry is a good writer. I mean, he's half responsible for Letterkenny and Shoresy. So while the book gets flack for reading like fanfiction, I don't think the TV show deserves that criticism. Now, there certainly are moments that are very cliche. The very prolonged staring and the cliche, ooh, the hand touching, neither of which are exclusive to, but are very prevalent in fanfiction and have become two overdone romance cliches that a lot of people can't help but roll their eyes at. That being said, the touching hands moment in episode 1 was one of the better executions of this cliche I've seen. It didn't make me want to cut my hand off. I also noticed that the aspect ratio isn't the typical TV 16:9, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but a more cinematic 2.4:1. Making something more cinematic often makes it feel more dramatic. To use this ratio in a TV show is a deliberate choice. Heated Rivalry wants the audience to perceive a story and drama more intensely, just like fanfiction. I will note this specific thought was based on a quick Google search about aspect ratios, so I'm not an expert and I am aware that I am probably reading into this too much. So I based the entire premise of this video off the trailer for Heated Rivalry, which is going to take the most dramatic and eye-catching moments and display them so people want to watch. And in gay hockey romance, it's the gay romance that will get people clicking on episode 1, which, as I said in period 1, is a very popular subgenre of fanfiction. Of course, the trailer is going to feel like a straight-off Wattpad. Fanfiction is kind of like trailers. It's a pressure machine of dramatic moments, granted with different goals. Fanfiction wants to release emotion, and trailers want to foster emotion, but they still use the same tactic of displaying the drama. So then why am I even making this video? Wasn't my whole thesis destroyed halfway through episode 1? No, and that's that. No, I actually do have a point. While the TV show's writing and execution doesn't feel like fanfiction, the premise itself feels straight off of AO3. There are a few aspects to the premise I want to talk about. Number 1, Shane and Ilya are partly inspired by Sidney Crosby and Alexander Ovechkin, which I'd not so subtly hinted at. Now, to be clear, Rachel Reed has said that Heated Rivalry is not a Crosby-Ovechkin fanfic, which I never considered the existence of, and I wish I could go back. The characters were merely inspired by the rivalry the hockey players had early on in their careers, and also probably on how good they are. For me, and for probably others, a romantic story inspired by real people who are still alive feels kinda cringe. I think it just feels like a crossed boundary, but I will say the inspiration is very loose in this case, so it's not as on the nose as I feared it would be.
A weak backhand. Yes, really weak.
Number 2, Heated Rivalry is, as I've said about 87 times, a gay sports romance. Now, I will say there is barely any hockey in this show. It's mostly just interpersonal drama, which I was expecting. So I think it's not fair to compare Heated Rivalry to sports TV shows and movies because it's not really a sport TV show in the sense that it's focused on the sport. However, the story is about two superstar hockey players, and you can't just remove that part, not because I find hockey particularly important to their characterization, but because it's vital to their relationship, the entirety of which is defined by their hockey careers. They meet because of hockey, their rivalry intensifies their enemies to lovers romance, and their careers are the reason they can't go public. Number 3, it's a romance. Wait, what? Romance is the main genre of fanfiction. Thus, it is the genre that can easily and often skate into fanfic territory, whether the writer intends for it or not. And as I established earlier, gay romance is a popular subgenre of romance fanfiction. It flourished there because for a long time, it wasn't really allowed to flourish in mainstream media. I should clarify that I don't think LGBT relationships in fiction are inherently fanfiction. It's just that as the main romance, they are seemingly more common in fanfic than original mainstream fiction, so they have a strong association with fanfiction. So if you can't take the sports out of the gay romance, then what are you left with? Heated Rivalry is applying the subgenre of gay romance that has strong links to fanfiction to something that doesn't typically involve gay romance: sports entertainment. You can mix subgenres and tropes however you want as a writer, but mixing certain things together is going to evoke certain feelings, certain patterns, certain associations, and certain undertones. I think a good example is religious media, specifically Christian media, because that's just what I'm familiar with. Christian media can technically be any genre, but it's not going to be able to shake the Christian undertone. It's going to feel at least a little preachy, especially if you're not Christian, because an inherent part of many religions is preaching. And even in non-religious media, when a religious figure or symbol is evoked, it's going to have that undertone. It's kind of like when you're watching something and a character is sacrificing themselves and they put their arms out and it kind of forms a cross. It's obvious the filmmaker is trying to evoke the symbol of Christ. It essentially forces the viewer to put even a faint religious filter over the movie they just watched. It might not be impossible to separate fanfiction and gay romance, but the two are intimately linked. Heated Rivalry might not be a fanfiction, but it evokes the spirit of fanfiction, because the origins of its subgenre and the author are so strongly tied to the world of fanfiction. On top of that, while I definitely don't believe it's crossed the line between inspiration and real people fanfiction, you can't just ignore the Crosby-Ovechkin parallels. I think it would be unfair to say you can't have Shane and Ilya without Crosby and Ovechkin. While they're good characters, they're not specific or unique enough to be reliant on their inspiration. But the author did say they were an inspiration, so that context exists nonetheless. All of this accumulates into what I believe was an unavoidable fanfiction undertone. It's also why I think a lot of other sports shows and movies don't feel like fanfiction. I think of The Mighty Ducks, a movie about an underdog hockey team that becomes champions. This is definitely wish fulfillment. I mean, everyone likes an underdog, but it's also something you do see in sports. And yes, there's a romance, but it's not the main plot, and it's also not a romance that has deep ties to fanfiction. It's not LGBT+, it's not enemies to lovers, it's not good girl, bad boy, and while there are plenty of sports romance books where the point is the romance with a backdrop of sports instead of the more common vice versa, it hasn't truly crossed over into the mainstream like Heated Rivalry has, at least not to my knowledge. There are genres and subgenres and tropes that, as they currently are, cannot avoid certain implications.
Because of the implication.
Gay hockey romance leaves a fanfiction impression. Religious media leaves a preachy impression. And there are some standouts, like The Chosen showing what people could believe in versus telling them what they should believe in. And Heated Rivalry, a show that stands on the shoulders of the fanfiction that came before it, but brings a well-written gay hockey romance into the mainstream. But the premise is still very fanfiction coded, and for more specific a reason than just the gay hockey romance part of it all. Shane and Ilya are superstar rivals in love.
Look how small the goals are, the size of a matchbox guarded by an overzealous beekeeper.
Hyperbole. Hyperbole for you heathens. Extravagant exaggeration.
Well, there's a bazillion different kinds of baskets.
Nobody's ever loved anybody as much as I love you.
Her eyes were midnight blue, as if someone had bottled the ocean's deepest trench inside them. Two superstar rival hockey players secretly fall in love. Heated Rivalry's premise is hyperbole.
Being gay is one thing, but your arch rival is another thing.
It's taking a situation, hockey romance, and making it the most extreme it could be. Secret gay hockey romance between superstar rivals who kind of hate each other. The notion of a gay hockey player isn't unrealistic, obviously, but it's not prevalent, and it's certainly not broadcasted. So, two gay superstar hockey players in a secret enemies to lovers romance is like the most extreme of an already uncommon scenario. For comparison, let's talk about another romance in Heated Rivalry, Scott and Kip, which I might like better, honestly. Now, while there is the undertone of fanfiction because of the connection gay hockey romance has to it, their story feels less like a fanfic because it's not hyperbole. Yeah, you have Scott, a superstar captain, but the love interest, Kip, works at a smoothie shop. Pretty mundane. There are a few fanfiction-y things about this relationship. It feels similar to a coffee shop alternate universe fanfic, which is a mouthful and a very popular subgenre, where one character works at a coffee shop, often an author self-insert, and the love interest is a customer, often being a celebrity. And there is no way Scott would get that much screen time during the actual Stanley Cup celebration. I mean, every single player does a victory lap with the cup. It takes forever. But all of those are fairly minor and don't change the feel of the romance too much. It doesn't have the same vibe Shane and Ilya's romance does. Okay. Question. What does Heated Rivalry, Twilight, Taylor Swift, and JoJo posing all have in common? Hyperbole. Yes, you got it correct. Everything is the most extreme it could be. It's a melodramatic version of itself. It's entirely extra, like putting whipped cream on a sundae. You already have ice cream, you don't need Cool Whip too. And yet this hyperbole is vital to the experience of these scenarios. You can't have JoJo without the Zara poses, and you can't have Taylor Swift without her saying how much of a monster she is. Maybe she really is Xena. But let's go back to Twilight because it's a romance and thus more relevant to the topic at hand. Twilight is the melodramatic romance. You have Bella, the most mundane girl, and Edward, the most extraordinary guy, fall into a very passionate, literally life or death romance. They are willing to Romeo and Juliet themselves if the other dies. She is willing to endanger herself because it makes her hallucinate him. Twilight is a hyperbole of an already very dramatic genre. And it's way worse than Heated Rivalry and melodrama and execution. But the premise of Heated Rivalry feels as hyperbolic as Twilight's does. I mean, even the characters' personalities are similar juxtapositions that only increase the hyperbolic feel. Shane and Bella are the boring ones, and Ilya and Edward are the interesting ones that bring the moodiness and drama into the boring ones' lives. There's nothing inherently wrong with writing the most extreme version of a situation. Stories don't tend to be about the most mundane version of a situation. In the cases of both Heated Rivalry and Twilight, the hyperbole of it all is entertaining. It's like fanfiction on steroids. But there is something inherently fanfiction-y about roided out fiction, about writing the most extreme version of a scenario. Fanfic writers have unbridled passion. They can write however they want with no limitations or standards. They are taking an existing thing and exaggerating it beyond its original confines, to increase immoderately or extravagantly, make incongruously large or extended, amplify beyond proper bounds. Fanfiction is exaggeration. It is hyperbole. Heated Rivalry is a hyperbole of a romance story, but the TV show does a pretty good job at making hyperbole feel real. The more we see something in original mainstream fiction, the less it will feel like fanfiction. At least that's my fan theory. Fanfiction might get criticism for how it is written and even the subject matter, and I don't disagree with some of that criticism, but what I will disagree with is that fanfiction is worthless, that it's a waste of time, that it's not a valid form of writing or entertainment. Fanfiction is why so many stories still have active fan bases years past their end. Fanfiction is how so many people realize their love for writing. Fanfiction can determine what comes next for the mainstream. Heated Rivalry might feel like fanfiction sometimes. It definitely has an inherent fanfiction association, but maybe that's not the bad thing I thought it was going into this. I'm not going to start reading and writing fanfiction, but I do have a new appreciation for it. I think it can be a good thing. I doubt it will ever stop being cringe and melodramatic because that's just kind of the nature of fanfiction. But aren't all writers a bit cringe and melodramatic when they first start writing? I know I was, and sometimes still might be. So next time I'm watching the Penguins and hoping they don't blow a 5-1 lead, and I see a trailer for a gay hockey romance, because there will be more, maybe I won't cringe. Maybe I'll watch the trailer and think, looks good. And let's be real, the most unrealistic thing about Heated Rivalry is that a Canadian hockey team wins the playoffs. Twice.
Dig the in!
And that's the final buzzer. I hope this video had some mustard on it. I hope you take my opinion like you take Crosby trade rumors. He's not going to the Avalanche. And I hope you skate on over to some of my other videos if you've still got some game left in ya. After all, 3 videos in a row is a hat trick, and I'll give you the first star of the game and the bucket. Anyway.
If you like, comment, subscribe, and check out another video, that's like even better than a hat trick. So do it.
Thank you so much for watching, and remember to befriend the kid who writes fanfiction, because they'll probably end up writing a hockey fanfic that becomes a bestseller and make millions. I'm in the wrong genre.